Well, hello everyone. I'm really excited for today's video because I'm going to share with you my top 10 favorite authors, what their books are like, what it is that I love about them, and then I'm going to give you a recommendation of a good place to start if you are interested in reading any of these authors. I only made one rule in narrowing this list to 10 is that I had to have read at least 4 books by an author for them to be included on this list. So let's get started. Number 10. Enthralling, mesmerizing, spellbinding are some adjectives that I would use to describe the works of Japanese author Haruki Murakami. Murakami is a hard author to explain what his books are like, and that's why I wanted to start with some adjectives, because I really struggle a bit to verbally say what it is that I really love about this author's writing. Most of his books are about contemporary life in Japan, but a lot of them are infused with just a bit of magical realism that is seamlessly just included within the story, and it just makes for a really interesting read. So my suggestion of where to start with Murakami is Norwegian Wood. This was actually the first book of his that I read. It does not have the elements of magical realism that I mentioned. It has to do with, growing up and dealing with love and friendship and loss and death and mental illness, and it's all wrapped into this very tight narrative. It's one of those, again, mesmerizing tales that I really enjoyed reading last year. Okay, number 9 on my list of favorite authors is Isaac Asimov. Asimov is one of the titans of classic science fiction, and he is my favorite science fiction author, and I do feel that unlike some other science fiction authors that I won't name, I think his works age a lot better. The reason is he's not always writing about just trying to predict technologies that may happen in the future, but he's always writing about ideas, and ideas never get old. I think a great place to start if you're looking for some great classic science fiction is Foundation. This is the trilogy, so the first book is actually just 1/3 of this volume, so it's a much easier read than this big volume that you see in my hands here. First book, Foundation, is just 5 short stories, so it is a great way to kind of just dip your toe in the water and to see if Asimov is someone that you might be interested in reading. All right, number 8 on my list is Charles Dickens. He certainly needs no introduction. He is one of the finest writers of the English language that we have ever had. The starting point for Dickens is probably the hardest decision I had to make of all these authors. And I think the best starting point is A Christmas Carol. The reason that I chose A Christmas Carol is, first, it's shorter than a lot of his works. Second of all, most of you probably know the story, and I think that's a good thing. The reason that I really chose A Christmas Carol is the English language has changed in the century and a half since Dickens has been writing. And I feel that a lot of times modern readers struggle with Dickens' writing style. So I think A Christmas Carol is a perfect place for you to get into the works of Charles Dickens. And I hope that you love his work as much as I do. After that, you can go to some of the larger novels like Great Expectations or A Tale of Two Cities or any of them, because they're all pretty great. But Christmas Carol is a great place to start your journey with Charles Dickens. All right, number 7 is Bernard Cornwell. I've seen Cornwell described as the master of adventure historical fiction, and it's true. These are very adventurous tales, and they're always in very interesting settings. And he has a very huge amount of books. I think he's written over 30 books in a whole variety of settings. So if my recommendation is not one that sounds interesting to you, but you think you might want to read some adventurous historical fiction, you can go to Cornwell's website and you can see all the different kinds of books that he's written. My entry point, I think, would be good for you is this book called An Archer's Tale. It was also published as Harlequin in England, but they called it An Archer's Tale in the States because of the Harlequin romance novels, which would be a much different audience than this. But I liked this adventurous tale. It's a tale of a 15th century archer searching for the Holy Grail. I adore Cornwell's writing, and he writes a battle scene like no other. And I've read a lot of great battle scenes in a lot of genres, and Cornwell's the best at it. All right, number 6 on my list is Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is the current undisputed king of the fantasy genre. What's remarkable for me having him number 6 on this list is the fact that I didn't read anything by Brandon Sanderson until last September. And in the 5 months since, I'm currently on my 12th Sanderson book. I cannot get enough of this author. He creates great characters. It's tightly plotted. His world building is off the charts great. And if you like the fantasy genre and you've never read Sanderson, you really need to. My entry point is Mistborn. Despite this, I don't like the cover. It's also published as Mistborn: The Final Empire. It's first of a trilogy, but it does act as a standalone novel. It's a great coming-of-age tale, very interesting magic system, a great world, just a fantastic story and a perfect entry point into Brandon Sanderson's works. Number 5, Justin Cronin. Of all the authors on this list, none of them caused me so many visceral reactions to his writing than Cronin. He's written 5 books, and I think 3 of them made me cry, and 1 of them made me feel literally like I got punched in the stomach with the last line of the book. He is an author that just really grips you into his stories. The other thing that he does so well is he just creates character, and he does it very subtly so that when something momentous happens to these characters, it just really hits you, and that's why I just seem to get such a reaction to Cronin's works. He has some very straightforward mainstream fiction books, and then he has his trilogy, the Passage trilogy, you see it behind me, which is a fine work of speculative fiction. If you like that genre, The Passage would be a great place to start, but I think in general the best place to start is The Summer Guest. I said in a previous video about The Summer Guest that this is the great American novel, and you know, it's definitely on the short list. All right, we're up to my top 4, my Mount Rushmore of favorite authors. Number 4 is Kate Atkinson. Atkinson is the reason that I made the rule a minimum of 4 books and not 5 books, because I've only read 4 books by Kate Atkinson, but I love her writing and I had to include her. Unfortunately, because I've only read 4 books of hers, I can't give you a great recommendation. I don't want to recommend something that I'm not sure about, and I just don't feel that my depth of reading Atkinson is adequate to give you a good recommendation. She is an author that straddles the line of literary fiction and straightforward fiction. So listen, if you're watching this video and you've read Atkinson of any depth, and you have a great place to start, please put it in the comments below. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. I will personally, I know that I plan on reading at least 2 or 3 more by Atkinson in the first half of this year. It's a top priority for me. And I'm kind of embarrassed that I don't have a great starting point for you, but I love and adore Atkinson's writing, and I can't wait to read more. All right, number 3 is John Steinbeck. It's interesting when I ask friends that I know are readers what they think of Steinbeck. I get one of 2 reactions. I get the, oh, I love Steinbeck, or the, ugh, Steinbeck. And I think he's an author that you either love or you don't. And it's interesting when I look up, you know, top 10 lists of American authors and books and so forth, it seems like Steinbeck's either at the top or he's left off the list. I'm not sure why, but I adore his writing. He creates the most relatable characters, and you just really feel for them because he always puts them in some challenging circumstances. Listen, if you need a happy ending to your book, Steinbeck probably isn't your guy, but if you want to feel something, Steinbeck definitely is an author for you. My recommendation for an entry point is Of Mice and Men. It's a very short volume you could probably put down in 2 hours, and it's a great entry point where you can find out which side of the fence you are with Steinbeck. All right, number 2 is Michael Connelly. Michael Connelly writes crime thrillers, and the reason he's so high on this list is he somehow lacks the ability to put out a bad book. And I've read over 30 Michael Connelly books, and every one of them I can tell you are good. If I use my rating scale for my book roundup, Connelly is Mr. 3.5 to 4.5 every single time. And the reason is that he is simply the master of plotting. There are very few authors that I've read that can match his skill in plotting, and that's the reason why his books are so consistently good. But they don't suffer from bad character or anything like that, but the plotting he's definitely a cut above just about everybody else. My recommendation for Connelly, Anywhere. That's one of the beauties of his books, is his books are all standalones, even though they might be part of a series. There are about 20 books with Detective Harry Bosch in them, but you don't need to read 1 through 20 in that order. You can drop in and read, you know, anything that interests you. All right, number 1. I tried hiding it, but you know, Stephen King is number 1 on my list. The reason that Stephen King is my favorite author is, above all else, he is a master storyteller. He writes in a wide variety of genres, and it doesn't matter what genre he's writing in, he's pretty great at it just because he knows how to weave a tale. He creates great characters and just tells great stories. You know, in the days of yore, he would have been the one around the campfire, you know, telling a different story every night. And that's why I keep going back to his works. Starting point is tricky. I'm going to agree with Mike from Mike's Book Reviews. I saw a video he did on Stephen King, and he recommended different seasons. At first, I wasn't sure if that was a good entry point, but the more I thought about it, I think this is the best entry point for Stephen King. The reason is it's 4 novellas. You get 4 totally different kinds of stories, and that's a good way to dip your toe into the works of Stephen King. But 2 of the novellas were turned into just fantastic movies. One was a great 80s movie called Stand By Me. The novella was called The Body. And another one was, the novella was titled Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, which became, yes, the Shawshank Redemption. Wait, the guy who wrote a book about 2 books about haunted cars wrote the Shawshank Redemption? Yes, and he wrote The Green Mile too. He is just so vast, and I hate when people say he's the king of horror. He is, but that's not what he's all about. He is plain and simple a brilliant storyteller that if you have not read, I highly recommend that you pick up some Stephen King. Well, that's my top 10 list. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have different recommendations of places to start with these videos, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. I'd also love to hear what your favorite authors are, and if you have a great starting point, because I can add it to my personal TBR list. I really want to make a lot of conversation happen with these videos. It's kind of the primary reason that I'm making them, so I'd love for you to drop some comments below. Additionally, please like and subscribe. I also have my Twitter listed down there and my Goodreads profile. So if you want to join me on either of those platforms, I'd love to interact with you there. But again, thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.